Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. Today is a very exciting day. Today we're going to walk you through step by step everything we did to double the power of a 5.9 common rail Dodge. So we held a YouTube contest where we had people submit videos to us and we put them on our YouTube channel. Then we had the people of YouTube vote on their favorite truck on who should get their truck's power doubled. We wanted to show people what they would need to do to double their power. And so Brian and his dad, Rod, actually won the competition. They drove their truck all the way from Tennessee out here to Cedar City, Utah, so we could do the double your power package on his truck. You made it!
We made it all the way.
How's it going, Brian?
Good to see you.
Yes, you as well. A long drive. What's your father's name?
Rod.
Rod. Hi, Rod. Nice to meet you. Todd Welch.
Nice to meet you.
Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this thing in here on the dyno. That's going to give us our power number to see what we need to double. So we're going to pull it in here, strap her down, and let's get started.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so actually the first thing we're going to do to this truck is pull the stock file. This is an 05, which means we're going to be using MM3 tuning for this truck. It's the best option for this model year. And so but we got to pull the stock file so we can actually tune on that stock file. So first thing we're going to do, even before we dyno it, is get that thing done. So we can start writing the tunes for this truck while we're dynoing it, while we're swapping transmissions, getting ready for big power. So step one, pull file. Step two, then we're going to dyno it.
So today we have the double your horsepower on this 2005, and we are going to be doing the MM3 with the custom tuning. We're going to go ahead and get this installed so we can pull the stock file out and get started on that. So now we're just trying to find that J139 plug, which we have located. So we got it all installed. Obviously we're going to mount it on the windshield for him. And we're going to go ahead and get his stock file out of here. Stock file pulled out. Alright, so we got that. Going to disconnect it and get it on the dyno, see what kind of power it makes stock, so that way we know what we got to double.
All right, we've pulled the stock file, we've got this thing loaded up. We are now ready to do our initial run. We're going to do about 2,000 to 3,000 RPM. I'd like to do it lower, but there's no lockup switch in here, so it'll downshift. Usually over about 2,000 RPM, it seems to not come out of lockup, so that'll be our first run here. Let's see if what kind of power we make this guy. Okay, yep.
High RPM, zero low drag.
All right, on that run, we got, what was it, 265, I believe?
265.
265 on that run, so now we're gonna do it one more time. Make sure we really got this thing dialed in and repeatable. So here we go. All right, so we got 265.08 at 2,900 RPM. So that's our number. This 05 is doing 265 horsepower to the ground. Let's double it. Here we go. All right, we now have this thing done on the dyno for its baseline runs. We're calling it 265 horsepower is our double mark. This same truck on another dyno may have done 285, may have done 255. It doesn't matter because we're going to double it on this dyno. So if it would have done 285 somewhere else, it would double that number as well. We're going to double the power. So we're calling it 530 as our minimum goal for this truck before it rolls out the door. So next step, getting it up in the air, put in a transmission that can hold this power because the stock unit will not live very long behind 530 horsepower.
Okay, so this truck made 265 horsepower to the tire. So a true double will be 530 horsepower to the tire. Now in our experience, a lot of trucks from this 04.5 to 07 model year, they usually make around 280 to the tire, which if you double 280, that puts you at 560 horsepower. So we want to put together a package that could reliably hold a little bit more than that 530 that we need for this project. So we're gonna do a 650 horsepower power-driven transmission. Right around that 500 horsepower mark, we have trouble with the factory input shaft. So we're gonna put this DPC billet input shaft. This is an Aramid material, an A400. It's a super alloy. It's stronger than chromoly, stronger than 300M. This is a exotic alloy made by Carpenter Steel, and it's the best. It's one of the toughest shafts. We run the shaft all the way up to 1,000 horsepower transmission. This billet DPC triple disc lifetime warranty torque converter is what we're gonna stuff in this truck. And we've lowered the stall speed a little bit because when we increase the power, the stock stall speed feels kind of sloppy and loose. So we're gonna go a little lower stall to better match the power curve of the more aggressive tuning and just the overall higher power level of the transmission. It's gonna make more torque. So we want a torque converter that keeps the engine in its optimal RPM range with the higher torque input. To top the whole thing off, we're gonna fill it with Power Torque ATF. The big difference on Power Torque ATF versus your factory ATF plus 4, this fluid's rated to a higher temperature and it is not loaded with friction modifiers like factory fluid. Friction modifier is a lot like a factory limited slip additive. It helps things slip, not what you're trying to do when you're trying to hold a lot of torque on a high horsepower diesel.
All right, we are now on day 2 of this build. Yesterday we got the stock transmission out. We put in our 650 horsepower transmission in this truck. We test drove it, made sure the line pressures are good. It shifts great, firmer than stock, but not crazy hard, just a nice firm feel. We also installed the MM3 hardware, the screen, the box, everything in there, and we got the tunes for it. So the tunes are now loaded on this truck. One thing I want to mention, while we were installing the transmission, when we pulled the old one out, we noticed the rear main seal was leaking. If you order a transmission kit or transmission from us, it's probably a good idea to get a rear main seal. So while the transmission was out, we went ahead and changed out that rear main seal. Easy to do when the transmission's out. So right now, this truck has a transmission that can hold the power, and it has tuning. We have left the stock exhaust system, catalytic converter, muffler, everything, 100% stock. The tunes we have on this truck right now is a stock optimized tune. What that means is we kind of remove some limiters. It's a stock programming just with some of the restrictions removed. We have a towing tune. We have a street tune. We also have a mean street tune, which is like a hopped up street tune. And then we have the race tune, which is going to be a max effort for the entire stock components. And again, stock airbox, stock exhaust. I just want to see what you can do with tuning only. So it's on the dyno again. We're going to go over here, run through these programs, see what kind of power we make with just tuning alone. Let's go do it. All right, so we're going to run this dyno up to 2800 RPM. On this run, I'm going to start with the race tune because I know that you're going to get the most power on a cold engine. It's not cold, but it's not heat soaked yet either. So we're going to do a quick run, a max power, see what kind of power we get, and work our way down to the tunes so you guys can see what kind of power levels you have available to you with this tuning package. So anyway, race tune right now, let's go. All right, so on the race tune, we went from 265 horsepower to 471 horsepower. Again, stock airbox, stock exhaust. That's pretty massive pickup, over 205 horsepower gain, 206 horsepower gain. So that's pretty cool.
You dropped your horsepower down by 500 RPM too.
Yeah, horsepower RPM dropped 500 RPM as well because we bring the timing in earlier than stock tuning, so it's much more usable power band. You don't have to wait clear to 3000 RPM to get to it. This is peak power at 2500 RPM, much more reasonable peak power level for this truck. So anyway, now we're going to put it down to the mean street tune and see what kind of power that gives us. So we're gonna go back to here, go to program. I want custom power levels is what I'm after. We're gonna go to Mean Street. All right, here we go. Okay, so Mean Street did 430 horsepower, pretty much dead on, and it's 429 to 430 from about 2,500 up to 2,800, so it really held it the whole way. So yeah, it's 40 horsepower less than the race, and still, what's that, 160, basically, 160 more in stock. So let's now go to our street tune and see what that does. All right, street tune, good for 370 horsepower. It's about 100 horsepower over stock. Let's go to the tow tune and see what kind of power guys are gonna have towing trailers up the hill. All right, so the tow setting on this tuning with no other mods besides fueling and a transmission that can hold it. It's 340 horsepower, so a nice 80 horse bump. Should tow real well, great AGT control, things like that. All right, we got some more mods to do because we got up to 470 horsepower. We are not yet to double, so we're gonna do some more stuff to truly double the power of this truck. Now that the transmission and tuning are in, it's time to throw some real hot rod parts of this so we can actually get to our double your power number. One thing you need when you start adding fuel is a lift pump, and so AirDog stepped up with a 165 4G lift pump. It's really nice, it was easy to install. So we dropped the tank, put their parts in, hooked up the lines, and it worked really, really well. It's a pretty easy install, and it didn't take too long. So now we got fuel pressure, we don't have to worry about starving that CP3 for fuel. Next, we wanted to put in some engine parts, so we started with head studs. When you're doubling the power, head studs is a great idea. And so IFG hooked us up with a set of their 12mm head studs. They're very comparable to the ARP 625s, and so we torqued these to 150 foot-pounds, and really happy with these head studs so far, and we got a set on this truck. We also put in some push rods and valve springs. Now these are power-driven diesels, push rods, and power-driven diesel valve springs. So big thanks to them for their sponsorship. But these springs are awesome. They're very similar to what's out in the market, 103 pounds, and I've had great luck with them. And this way, these should be very reliable. Truth be told, you may or may not need this in your truck at this power level, but we wanted them to have it because we wanted it to be ultra reliable and not have any failures going down the road. So these valve springs and push rods, he should have the valve train and engine department well covered for this power level. On the fueling side, we went with a set of 90 horsepower fuel injectors. This is plenty of fuel injector to handle this power with some room to spare. One thing that's nice about adding a fuel injector is you're able to decrease the duration of injection duration is what it's called, pulse width of your injector, so we don't have to run them near as hard. And by shortening down that window, the CP3 has the ability to kind of recover between injection events. You can actually make more power with the stock CP3 in a bigger injector than you can with a stock CP3 and a normal injector. So we'll pick up a bunch of flow with these injectors. We should be able to double the power without having the expense of an additional high-dollar CP3 pump. As I said before, we have never had a bone stock turbo HE351 hit over 500 horsepower on our dyno. It's been done in the internet and all over the world, I get it, but our dyno's stingy, and since we have to double the number that was from our dyno, we knew we had to upgrade. And so we decided to go with the BorgWarner SXC362. We offer this as a drop-in turbo for this third-gen Dodge. And it's super easy to install. Your homeowner guys can do this. We also went with the locking fasteners. I've talked a lot about stage 8 bolts and how much I love them. I've had multiple bolts back out on my exhaust manifolds, on turbos. When that happens, you get a bunch of soot in your engine bay. It's a big mess. With these locking fasteners, you're guaranteed not to have the bolts back out I think it's well worth the money, and I personally wouldn't have a truck or build a truck without using these fasteners. On the drop-in 362 turbo, there's two turbine housing options. The one we're using for this truck will mate up to a bone stock exhaust. You don't have to change anything. There's another version we have which is kind of based on the Caterpillar design for the S300 turbo. That requires a little bit of a modification on your exhaust to make it fit because the discharge is further back towards the firewall. So if you're putting on a new exhaust system, I would probably recommend going that route because it's has a little bit better performance characteristics. It spools up a tad quicker, flows a little bit more, and makes it more power. It's not night and day. If you want to keep your stock exhaust system, I wouldn't change it out for that turbine housing, but it is technically a little bit better. With this truck, this is the family tow rig. They haul cars all across the country with it. It's a work truck, and I really wanted it to be a pleasant truck to drive. So I wanted to leave the stock exhaust system on this truck. Stock exhaust is 4-inch on these trucks, which is plenty of flow for this power level. And if we keep the stock muffler in place, it really makes it for a pleasant, quiet drive. So they can drive this truck in tow. They're not gonna have a lot of drone in the truck. It'll be real nice. So I really am hoping we can make the power with a stock exhaust because it's just so much more pleasant to drive for a work type truck. In addition to a turbo, we put in an aftermarket air intake kit. This is an S&B air intake box, but we actually put in one of our power-driven diesel air filters for this because I think they're awesome and they're the best. And so that's the air filter we put in this truck for this test. To top it off, we did an oil change. The oil had at least 2,000 miles on it because they came across from Tennessee. Plus it's looking pretty grody in there. So we gave him a fresh oil change with our power-driven diesel oil, get those good additives in there so he can really run across the country knowing that his engine is protected really well. So now that we have all the Go Fast parts on the engine, we have also the tuning on it, the MM3 tuning that is set up for this fuel system. Remember, we have bigger injectors on this setup now, so we don't need near as much injection duration. So we shorten down that window. We should still make the power with this, even with that shorter injection duration. One big problem we ran into is after we did the 471 horsepower run, the next days when we installed all the Go Fast parts, we updated the software on our Mustang dyno. They released this new update. We have their latest and greatest software. They came out here and we spent a ton of time and money getting our dyno awesome. We updated the software and now we cannot load the dyno during the power sweep. We can do a power sweep, but we cannot apply load. And without a load, you just can't make power on these diesels. They need to have something to work against to make the power. So we have a bit of a problem. So we're playing around, trying to figure out how the heck are we going to dyno this thing. It's now late at night. They've been here an extra day or two because we've been trying to get this thing done. They're ready to go home for Tennessee. We don't have time to call Mustang the next day and wait for them to figure it out. So what we decided to do is actually do a manual loading thing. We can still load the dyno, just not in a power sweep. So what we can do is we can say, all right, hold this truck at 2,000 RPM, hold it at 2,500 RPM, hold it at 3,000 RPM, and it will hold it there. You put your foot to the floor and you're not going any faster. It's like the steepest hill to trailer. It's going to load you awesomely, but it's not a power sweep. So we're going to just have to do some testing where we're going to get the power level at different RPM points to see what kind of power it makes. So we set it up. The peak power before at our 470 horsepower run was right around 2,800 RPM. So we're going to set the dyno at 2,750 RPM, flat foot it, and see what kind of power we get. Here we go. $27.50. $33, $34, $35. Woo! Good power. Good power. Okay, so our peak power achieved on that was 585. So we're a solid 50 horsepower past what we needed to double the power. So that's pretty exciting. One thing that's interesting is with MM3, you can see what your commanded rail pressure is and what your actual rail pressure is. So we're about 2,000 PSI short of commanded. So we are at the limits of a stock CP3. I'm actually pretty excited we got this much power out of the stock CP3, but that's it. That's all she's got. So if we want more power than this on this dyno, we're to upgrade CP3, which you can easily do. The injectors are there, the turbo's there. We're only making about 35 pounds of boost, which really indicates, I know this turbo can make a lot more than that and be happy, so there's more room in the turbo for sure. So this guy's a CP3 away from well over 600 horsepower. But right now, 585 is all she got, which is pretty good for a stock CP3 on this dyno. Okay, so peak power ended up being around 585 horsepower. That's well north of the 530 we needed to double this power of this truck. But truth be told, like I said earlier, we had trucks in the past here that were around 285 horsepower. So my personal goal was 570 horsepower for this truck. That way, anybody who has a common rail, any year 5.9, this recipe will work for you to double the power of your truck. And on the street, it's a rip. Will took him out for a ride. I think he had a real good time.
First impression sounds just like it
Sounds
before.
just like it did when we brought it in. Oh, yes.
Had to lift a little bit to get some traction.
To keep it from spinning. Okay, I hear the turbo. Holy cow! Oh my! This is amazing. I may have to take my wife out with her Corvette and we'll do a little comparison.
We got a one tire fire.
Oh yeah.
So that's it. That's how you double the power of a 5.9 common rail truck. If you feel like it and you like the sound, an exhaust would be a nice addition to this package. It would probably pick up 20 or 30 horsepower, wouldn't surprise me. However, it wasn't needed, and for this truck we thought it was well worth sacrificing a little bit of power for the ease of driving long distances. In the end, that'll be up to you what you want to do, because sometimes a good sounding truck is awesome to have as well.
So, Brian, Rob, how'd it go?
Wow. Absolutely amazing.
Totally different truck.
Totally different truck.
We added everything in this package that we thought was necessary for ultra reliability. You could technically double the power of your Dodge without some of the modifications we did, but we really wanted Rod's truck to be ultra reliable for a long time to come. We're going to have this entire package on our website, so if you want to get this exact same package for your truck, you can just go and option it on our website. It'll be under the 5.9 Common Rail double your horsepower package.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
I hope this video was interesting to you. I hope it was entertaining and educational. Please give us a like. It helps this video get out in front of more eyeballs, helps this channel grow, helps spread the message of how awesome diesel is. So thanks a lot, you guys. Please subscribe. And yeah, I think we should do another double your power video, and look for that coming soon. Thanks.